changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more, no more complaining. People, their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more, no more.
So continue to check in and post if you would. I want to get into the meat of our matter. And that is, we talked about this the other day, but I wanted to go a bit more deeply into this. And that is to talk about Christmas and to talk about why we celebrate during the holidays. Miranda says, it's my first from, hey, Miranda is here. Everybody say hello to Miranda. Miranda's here for the first time. Welcome, Miranda. Good to have you here. And hope you will continue to come back and join us on a regular basis. So there we go. I want to talk with you a bit more about why we celebrate the holidays. Human beings celebrate. Have you ever thought about that? That is what we do. We party. I've shared with you in previous jump starts about the first time I took my daughter to Disney World, and we went and had this character breakfast with Mickey and Minnie and Donald and everything. And occasionally the MC of the thing would say, hey, everybody, let's party. And for them, let me see if I grab a tissue. I'll show you what I mean. But everybody had a napkin, and that meant take your napkin and spin it around. That was called let's party. And in fact, later when I led a group of people to Africa to help build a hospital there, at the end of the day, we would come back together and we would talk about what we each had experienced during the day. And then instead of applauding or snapping fingers, we would take a napkin and do this. Everybody, human beings, have this need to celebrate, this need to party. And during this time of the year, during approximately a 20-day window, there are 14 major religious celebrations that go on. 14 religions or 14 expressions of religion have major celebrations. Christmas is not the only one by far, as all of us know. We have this need to celebrate, and we choose to do it during the darkest, bleakest time of the day. One of the things I love to do because of where I live, I get beautiful sunsets every single night, and they're different every single night. I live in Key Largo and I live on the bay, so I'm facing west. And it's so great to go out there and watch the sunset. Nowadays, though, I'm looking at my watch going, oh man, I missed the sunset, because the sunset is like happening almost at noon, it seems. Whereas normally in the summertime, it's 8:30, 9 o'clock. Of course, we also have daylight savings time. I love to go out and celebrate that sunset. And so many people are there celebrating the sunset as well. If I take Teddy to this park where people like to go for the sunsets, if we're there at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, nobody's there. But if we're there right before sunset, it's packed. So it's interesting that we all need and want to celebrate. And human beings around the world, in different cultures, different tribes, different continents that had never met one another necessarily, except for common ancestry probably, but had never engaged with these other human beings. And they all said, let us celebrate our greatest connection to universe, to God, to spirit during the bleakest and darkest of times. And I'm not talking about there are no atheists in foxholes, because I've seen that play out over and over and over again. We often are really, really tight with our spiritual connection when we are at our worst point in our lives. I know someone who recently had COVID, had dengue fever, and something else really, really major. And during that time, he really found his spirituality, his connection to God. And then when things get better, we often drift. I think there are two takeaways from this. Number one, the more we keep that connection, that feeling of there is whatever we choose to call it, a divine loving power that is ours, that is looking out for us individually and that we can connect to for guidance, etc. It's funny, this morning I was journaling and trying to figure, there's something I've been trying to figure out for a few days. And I was journaling, thinking, doing research, etc. And I finally said, God, I wonder what I'm supposed to do. And literally in that moment, I felt this inspiration and I went, oh, okay. Yeah, I get it. That's exactly it. So remember, it's not about any particular religion. It's understanding that as a species, human beings have said, when things are at their worst, this is when we need to celebrate. Try and think of something that happens in a person's life that is not marked, that's significant, that's not marked by celebration. Somebody's born, we celebrate. Somebody dies, ideally, we celebrate. Someone comes back from a trip, someone graduates school, someone does anything of importance, we celebrate. So what I want to ask you, and the reason I wanted to bring all of this up today, is to, number one, let you know that we have a racial or a spiritual or a species intelligence that moves towards celebrating. And yet the culture we live in is fear-based. It's driven by fear. We are driven by lack. We are driven by greed. When I used to sell radio advertising, my boss, I had no experience writing ad copy, and yet I had to go out and sell the ads and come back and write the ads, and I didn't know how to write ads. He said, look, people are only motivated by two things, guilt and greed. And if you can touch on both of those, you've got a winner. So the culture that we live in is not about celebrating. It's about being fearful. It's about worrying. This is why gratitude is so important. Gratitude is celebrating what is there, even if it's a little thing. I find myself sometimes, if I'm struggling, with my mind, getting my mind right. Of course, the express train to getting your mind right is gratitude. And I will say things like, thank you for this ring light. I am grateful for that ring light. I'm grateful that I can afford a nice camera. And I'm grateful for the way the Blue Yeti microphone makes my voice sound. And just literally to say all of those things, because otherwise you are being exposed. I used to actually teach advertising, and I've done some classes on advertising, just things I learned over the years because I was in advertising for many years, selling advertising. And we are driven by guilt and we are driven by greed. And where was I going with that? That this idea, oh yes, I know what it was. Back when I was teaching it, at that time, there were 10,000 ad messages that we saw on a daily basis or heard. That was radio, television, newspaper, billboards. I'm trying to think if there were anything else. Bus boards, magazines. But beyond that, there was no internet. There was no advertising on Facebook. There was nothing like that. So imagine if what motivates you is guilt and greed, and if you're seeing 10 to 20,000 of those on a daily basis, triggering off guilt, triggering off greed, and neither one of those are emotions that tend to make you feel good, because greed is driven by lack. Greed is driven by comparison. Greed is driven by coveting something, wanting something you don't have, and feeling empty because you don't have it. Guilt is feeling bad for something you have done in the past or are not doing. Neither of these are positive. So what I want to invite you to do, however you are celebrating whatever holiday you are celebrating, and I know Hanukkah just ended, And I know Christmas for many of us are just a few days away. What are you celebrating in your life now? I know all got things we want, wishes for Santa Claus. But if we focus on that, we'll never be full. What are you celebrating now? What are you grateful for now? Now, after having, I don't want to jinx it, I'm not going to, but after we have lived through and are continuing to live through, because we are, a global pandemic worse since the 1917 flu, how are you celebrating? Are you celebrating that you've made it this far? Are you celebrating that even though you're not going to be with your family has made a commitment to stay healthy, and so you know you're going to be seeing them again and you're not worried? It is so important to put our daily focus on celebrating. One of the most popular people I know is a woman I knew in Kansas City. And she was very popular. And the reason she was popular was she was always going, yay. I mean that sincerely. If somebody said something good that happened to them, like, I lost my keys, but I found them, she would go, yay. And she'd go, I'm going to visit my daughter next week. Yay. This yay, it was like a cheerleader constantly going on, this feeling of celebration. Because let me tell you something. If you want to create a successful, super successful blog with a huge following, talk about what's missing and what you're pissed off about. Because that attracts people's egos. And most people live in their ego, their human, fearful self. However, I see a day when the biggest communications through social media are providing inspiration and hope. There's a lot of us out there. And as more and more of you find us, and as we are able to share our message, and more importantly, in sharing our message, we're able to share your stories of transformation. It's a lot to celebrate, y'all. It's a lot to celebrate. So in closing, I'm going to check in with everybody who has said hi so far, but I want to ask you, what are you celebrating today? I'm celebrating a Christmas with my new love. I'll just say that. I'm celebrating Christmas with my new love. Miranda's here, as I said, for the first time, and Heather says, welcome. Natasha, there's Natasha. She says, happy Monday. Mercedes Herrera Dees says, good morning, Maria. Good to see you. I said, Marcia, good morning. Ed Wilmot, let's see what old Ed has to say. I am actually an agnostic atheist, and I still celebrate the season. Today is a celebration of the shortest daylight hours, the beginning of winter. My spiritual intelligence may be different than theist, but it's there. You know what, Ed? I love it. I 100% support it. Not only do I support where you're coming from, I get it at a very deep level and love it. Expressing my gratitude in my daily journals is one of those expressions. Sharing it with others is an opportunity for celebration. Susan Panther says, love your Christmas spirit. Thank you very much. We went and walked around Miami Beach, and we walked around Coral Gables to see the Christmas decorations. Of course, you're wearing short pants. And I have a shirt. It's dirty right now. It's in the wash, but it's covered with little Santa Clauses on it. I was wearing my Santa hat. Now, the reason I wear my Santa hat is not just because I'm festive. It's a little chillier here than normal, and my bald head gets quite cold. So I was wearing that. And then I have a mask that shows Santa stuck in a chimney. And my girlfriend has the coolest mask ever. Everybody was coming up to her asking her about her mask. It's simply a brown mask that like neutral to your face, and then it has a smile drawn on it, and then it has a little Rudolph red nose that dangles off of it. And everybody kept coming up and asking her about that. Really cute. Thank you. Jerome is celebrating life. Awesome possum. And let's see who else. Natasha Harris celebrating my life, family, all the good things have, and appreciating life. Congratulations, Will. Have a great holiday, says Natasha. Thank you so much. By the way, I want to remind you, 7 p.m., Christmas Eve, join in for 10 minutes if you would. I'm going to be reading 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. It'll be an opportunity for all of us to just connect in a nice, sweet moment, and it won't take long. Maria says, celebrating life, finally got divorced. Maria, I heard that. Anybody else have a comment? We will dial it in while we're here. Thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow will be our last jump start for this week, and I'm going to be jump starting. I had to dial it in here. Oh, now I know I had this already written out. You know what the issue is? I have actually gone so far ahead in what I am doing. Oh, I got it. It's something I came up with. I call it drop add increase. It's going to be something that will allow you to focus going forward into 2021 and to simply, very simple, because that's always my goal, not to give you things that are complex and difficult, but some simple ways that you can make 2021 the best year of your life. We're all going to throw 2020 away. It was a mulligan, but we're going to make 2021 the best. And that's what tomorrow's going to be about. Let's see. Today is my mom's 6th heavenly birthday. Bless your heart. I'm celebrating her today. Susan, we celebrate you as well. Happy holidays, says Natasha. And Michelle says, wonderful message. Thank you. And thank you, Michelle, very much for being with us every day. Remember, 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve, I'm going to be reading 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. We'll all have a little chance to say happy holidays and Merry Christmas then. Enjoy today. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
No more complaining people. Their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more complaining people. Their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more.